I just wrapped up with the first guest of the Unfiltered Tea with Evie podcast. And when I said that I was planning on bringing on epic guests, this is who I had in mind. And I am so excited for you to listen to this episode. If you are a small business or an entrepreneur who is juggling all of the things with marketing, showing up, time management, and just doing all of the things, this is the episode for you. And it was like a very pinch me moment to record this podcast. You'll find out why when you listen, and I am genuinely so excited for you to tune in. So, without further ado, introducing our first podcast guest, Kelsey Reidl is a business consultant and marketing strategist with nearly 15 years of experience driving growth for both Fortune 500 companies and small businesses. Before launching her consulting practice, Kelsey honed in her expertise in experiential and brand marketing, e-commerce strategy, and digital marketing with brands including Loblaws, Vega, and Garden of Life. For the past decade, she has shared her industry knowledge as an instructor teaching digital marketing at Toronto Metropolitan University and the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. She's also the host of Rain or Shine, a top 1.5% ranked podcast in the Canadian entrepreneurship category, where she has conducted over 350 interviews across 8 years. Having worked with over 400 small businesses, Kelsey's methodology starts by stripping away the overwhelm in a marketing funnel and focuses on data-driven strategies. When she's not designing marketing plans for her clients, you'll find Kelsey riding Ontario's best mountain bike trails, chasing her 1-year-old around the park, or paddling the river in her backyard. So lean in, listen close. We're going to chat with Kelsey. Welcome to the Unfiltered Tea with Evie podcast. Kelsey, I'm so grateful and happy that you're here and to have you as the first official guest. I'm super pumped, so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I feel very honored, and it's a little bit of pressure to be your first guest, so hopefully I can deliver.
Of course, yeah, no pressure at all. When I was even starting the podcast and I was thinking of like who would I want to have as like my first epic guest, and you were the first person to come to mind. So I'm so happy that you said yes and we're able to be here.
Very meaningful to me. And yeah, I even remember like a couple of years ago when you came on my podcast and it was one of your first podcast appearances. So this kind of feels like a full circle moment that I can be a guest on yours today.
It does. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So to get us started, my first thing that I always love to hear when I'm listening to podcasts is people's stories, how they got started in business and what they do. So I'd love to know what your story is. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll try to like just hit on some milestones because sometimes you can look back at your journey and be like, wow, a lot has happened.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many inflection points, but I guess to kind of summarize things. So after high school, I decided to enroll in university for human resources. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I got to the end of my 4-year degree and all my friends were getting jobs at like, you know, these random banks and insurance companies and whatever, awesome career paths for them. We're sitting there going, oh my God, there is no way I can do this profession, even though I just devoted a lot of time and energy and money to certifying myself and becoming prepared for this career. So I decided to take time off and I went traveling and lived and worked in Switzerland and just kind of like refound my love for adventure and being active and just, I don't know, like being among nature. And eventually that had to come to an end. I remember my parents telling me like, okay, it's time to come home and kind of figure out your next step. And so I decided to move home. I moved to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I enrolled in this random program at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And I thought, I'm going to become a holistic nutritionist. And so I went through that program. And after the year, I was like, amazing, I'm going to start my own business doing this. And I started seeing clients, building meal plans, doing grocery store tours, all the things. And this was about 10 years ago, right when Instagram was blowing up, Facebook was blowing up, online business and courses were becoming a thing. And I remember being like, okay, all of my peers who graduated at the same time as me They are going to work in clinics. So they were literally paying money to rent an office space. And I was like, that's cool. But I feel like people want to see their nutritionist online. I feel like they want to do online programs that they can access from anywhere. And so I ran my first 30-day online detox. I ran it through a Facebook group. I promoted it on Instagram. I ran some ads towards it. And I remember a lot of my classmates saying like, whoa, how did you do that? How did you set this all up? How do you send emails? How do you build a list? Who did you hire to build your website? And it was kind of at that moment that I realized I was less interested in nutrition and more interested in building the systems and structure and really cracking the code on this online business thing. So that all happened. I started helping some of my peers. And then a little further down the line, I decided that I wanted to shut down my nutrition business. I was no longer interested in talking about why people were eating Cheetos at 11 p.m. at night, although that's a very important topic that we can talk about another time. But I just realized that wasn't my passion. And so I did what entrepreneurs do, and they pivot, right? So I decided to go back to work to corporate or in corporate. And I really wanted to advance my knowledge in the profession of marketing. I wanted to have legitimate experience and to learn from inside companies. So I spent the next 5 or so years working for some really big health food companies as a marketing specialist, a marketing manager. I was a digital marketing specialist at one company, community manager at another. So all in this realm of figuring out marketing strategies for these brands. And that's when it really hit me that this was kind of my calling. I loved learning not only about digital marketing, but also experiential marketing, brand marketing, how to crack the code on what people call funnels, like how to take someone from they don't even know about you to now they're obsessed with you. Like that takes time and effort and intention. And so I went through that whole journey and eventually just thought, you know what, I can help small businesses with their strategies. I don't want to work in corporate anymore. I want more freedom. And I want to make an impact by working with businesses one-on-one. So eventually got the courage to quit my corporate job and I picked up a handful of freelance clients, which was, just so unknown at the time. I was like, I'll just do anything for you. Like, you want me to do your Instagram and book your vacations to Mexico? You got it. And and I really just started building out my consulting business and freelance business from there. So that's the gist of it.
I love that. And I love that it was such a natural progression for you that, it took all of that beforehand to get to where you are and to figure out what it is that you wanted to do.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so much exploration and change. And I always look back at my 20s fondly because I'm like, I just kind of was like flowing through. And I think as we get older, sometimes we feel more rigid in terms of like, well, this is my path. I better stay on it. But something about my spirit in my 20s was very much like, take a left turn. Oh, okay, take a right turn. And yeah, I really admire that chapter in my life because I don't think I'm as much like that today.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. If someone was just starting out with you or in marketing in small business in general, what would you tell them to kind of give themselves permission to let go of right off the bat?
Okay, so if someone was just starting working with me and a lot of people come to me, they say they're overwhelmed with marketing. They're not generating enough clients or leads or revenue, whatever the challenge is. They just feel like they're like, I'm meant for more. I have more capacity, but I don't have the eyeballs. I don't have the demand right now. I would always start by looking at their business foundation. So I always say that like no amount of marketing can sell a product that people don't want. So imagine somebody comes to you, Evie, and they're like, okay, I created this drink with 5,000 milligrams of caffeine and it's for toddlers. And I want you to help me market it. And you're kind of like, objectively, I just know that like no parent is going to give their kid a very highly caffeinated drink at 2 years old. So to help them build a strategy, it would just feel misaligned. So my approach when I work with a client is like, we really need to look at what are you selling? Who are you selling it to? And how have you positioned yourself against the competition? And why I always start there is because I think that a lot of business owners, like let's just use a personal trainer, for example. They open their business and they think everybody wants an online virtual training program. And they're like, why isn't it selling? Why isn't it selling? And as we start to like do the research and talk to their community, the people who they want to serve are like, I actually just want to get out of my house for an hour a day. But like the business owner is just so hung up on the fact that I want to work online. And it's like, okay, well, we have competing interests here because to work online, you might need more visibility. So you need to spend the time building a brand. But if you want immediate revenue, which is a lot of business owners' goals, we need to create product market fit right away. So yeah, that's usually my starting point with people because I just think that you don't want to just throw money and time into the wind when it comes to marketing if you're not truly confident in what you're selling and who you're selling it to.
Mm-hmm. And is that a difficult conversation to have with them? Because they come to you so excited about their idea, and it's like we have to look at, is there a need and a demand for this as well?
It's really difficult. And I think that's why people hire a consultant because they need an objective opinion. And it's not to say that like I will ever make these like, really concrete statements. But what I do is I observe trends in marketing. And a big example of this right now is online courses. Online courses 5 to 10 years ago, they sold like hotcakes. Now, when somebody comes to me and tells me they want to sell an online course for $40 and become a millionaire, I'm like, have you looked at the state of the industry? Can people find this on ChatGPT? Do you have a community component? Do you have enough eyeballs to sell this? And most people, most business owners, like they don't have enough attention yet. So it's like, well, we need to get you out in front of audiences online, in person, build up that demand, and then launch the product. So yeah, I think there's a lot of tough love in marketing that's needed right now because we've all been sold this dream that running a business is easy. And I think that was perpetuated by Instagram and TikTok and all of these creators who they are selling a lifestyle. And yeah, I just think that we're dismantling what it is to be an entrepreneur right now and that it does take work and that, the online marketing space is quite saturated with mediocre content. And so you have to be really smart about what you're selling and how you're selling it and the business plan that you have to make it and to not burn out and quit on yourself.
Yeah. And I think you and I were both at an event this year, and one of the speakers said the same thing, like they're selling this idea that it's supposed to be easy, but you have to be ready to roll your sleeves up and do the hard work. And I think
Yes.
that is something that we're seeing more and more.
Yeah, I remember that speaker and I just remember being like, thank God that she was a little bit older than you and I were. And I was like, it's just nice to hear that perspective from somebody who's been in the game longer, who's like, I see what you guys are consuming and like, I don't really know if that's the reality for too many people. So yeah, I just think it's important to have these honest conversations and to share. And that's not to say there aren't easy parts about business and enjoyable parts, but I also do think, like you said, you do have to roll up your sleeves once in a while and get good at things that maybe you don't want to do, but that are required to keep the wheels in motion on a business.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you talk a little bit about scatterbrain marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know a little bit more about what exactly that is and why it doesn't work.
Absolutely. This is my favorite term because I feel like so many people in the early days, and it's very normal if you feel like you are implementing scatterbrain marketing, because not all of us are trained marketers. We don't necessarily have this strategic brain that's so organized, that's like, okay, on Monday I do this, and on Tuesday that leads to this, and I will convert people this way. Like, there's just a lot to think about when you run a business, and marketing is just one small fraction of that. So scatterbrain marketing is essentially exactly what it sounds like. It's when you are basically just like doing random things Like I had a client recently who was like, okay, I'm going to start a Substack this week. And then they posted one Substack. The next week they're like, oh my gosh, I was told to build an email list and get on Pinterest. So they started both of those things. Then they're like, oh my gosh, I need to, start doing clips on YouTube. So they started doing that. And I was kind of just like trying to reel them in each time, being like, I love your zest and your energy, but all of this is very scattered. And given that your goal is to find clients, I'm like, this isn't working. And her energy was frantic. I was looking from afar going, this all is very frantic, because each platform was talking about different things and had different branding. And I think oftentimes when we think about our own marketing strategies, we're just like, yeah, it feels very scattered and it's not all working cohesively. I don't know how one thing leads to another, or why what I'm spending time on is actually going to help me to get clients. So really what I think is the solution to scatterbrain marketing is simply writing down what are the 3 to 5 things that you do on a weekly basis in order to get eyeballs on your work. So that's kind of that top of funnel. Then how do we nurture those people? So 1 or 2 ways that we actually show up and deepen relationships. And then ultimately, do you have a conversion event? So that's bottom of funnel. So are you like inviting them to join a webinar where you sell your branding package? Are you asking them, hey, do you want to jump on a quick Zoom call? I think I could help you. So it's really just looking at your marketing as more of a structured approach and then sticking with it for a minimum of 90 days, which I know is not even a long time frame, but I think a lot of us, we do something for 2 weeks and then we stop. And then we do this for another week and then we stop, and there's no cohesion. So I think it's important to make that commitment of like, stick with the same marketing plan for a minimum of 1 quarter of the year before you make drastic changes or judge a certain strategy that it works or doesn't work.
I love that. I can definitely attest to having that scatterbrain marketing for like probably the first year or 2.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
really like year 3 where it locked in.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think that's an experience that a lot of people have. And what do you recommend within those 90 days? How can you tell whether it's working or not? What's a good way for people to kind of track that and analyze that?
Yeah, I always suggest to my clients that they take a 2-pronged approach. So the first is, did you derive joy from this strategy? So say you decide to commit to Substack for 90 days and you're like, okay, I'm going to post 2 times a week, and I'm going to do that for 90 days. If you arrive at the end of 90 days and you're like, man, I dreaded that every single week. I have no one to help me write or edit or post. I really just don't like the platform. I don't even consume it myself. I would kind of mark some points against that. So did you derive joy from 1 to 10? 10 being loved it, had so much fun, it felt easy, effortless, it was lucrative. 0 being, this is not great. And then the other piece of that is, did it produce results? So you might hate Substack, but it brought in 30,000 in revenue for your business. So you're like, okay, I'm just going to figure out a system where I can hire a ghostwriter. They'll do it. I'll generate the ideas. I'll review it. At least I can take myself out of it. So it's kind of weighing those two. Like, one is more of a qualitative check-in. The other is more of a quantitative check-in of like, did this help me reach my business goals? And then when you look at both of those numbers side by side, it's like, okay, if I have a max of 20 out of 20, so 10 points for how much joy it derived, 10 points for how much ROI it produced, which strategies were in that 12 to 20 range, keep those. Which ones were like 12 and below? And that's when I would really ask you, like, is this worth it to you to keep grinding it out? If it's making you miserable and it doesn't produce results, is there something else you could do? Like, could you just go networking or like host a podcast or anything else? So I think that's a good measure of like, is something working?
I love the joy piece too, because I feel like that's something like people feel like they should be doing something, but it makes them miserable. And that's the energy they show up with. Whereas
Yeah.
they should be doing something that makes them happy, and they can show up with joyfully and with that energy, and their audience picks up on that.
Yeah. So like, let me ask you, like, what is something you've done in your marketing strategy over the last 3 years that has both been joyful, like you actually enjoyed it, and it's gotten you clients?
For me, I would say like Instagram's a big one for me. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I've always found joy in it and showing up in stories. And then in-person events is a huge one. Like I always get so much out of them, but I also really enjoy going and meeting people and making those connections.
Totally. And I think that's the best indicator. Like if you were, and I know you've already done this, but planning your 2026 marketing strategy, it's like, okay, those are kind of my anchors. Those are the things that are non-negotiable because I know they work and they're enjoyable. And then it's always thinking, is there something I should experiment with? So we can always just kind of like rinse and repeat. However, algorithms change, economies shift, so we can't always rely on, in your case, Instagram and in-person events to grow, grow, grow. So if you're in a season of growth, you would ask, what is something else that I can add in? And for you right now, it's the podcast, right? That could actually like add in, 30% more revenue to your business because now you have another channel to reach people. So it's always just playing this game of what's working, keep doing it and make it better. And what else can I be doing to become more visible?
Yeah, I love that. So tell me a little bit about the 3 M's of marketing.
Cool. Okay, so you did your homework. So when somebody's newer to marketing, they usually jump into like, tell me what to post on Instagram or what should I write in my email newsletter? And I'm always like, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. You've kind of like missed a couple of steps here. So first things first, for anyone who's listening who wants to become better at marketing, you need to know the first M, which is what is the mission of your marketing? So for some people, like say you want to get a book deal and you don't need to make money right now, your mission is just visibility. So you might just show up and try to create viral TikToks because you just want eyeballs to be able to show the book publisher, look, I get 100,000 impressions every single week on my social media. So maybe that's your mission. For some people, their mission is, I need to find 2 more personal training clients in order to like do this as a business. Otherwise, I have to go back and work my corporate job. So it's like, okay, we really need to lean into who's in your warm market right now, boots on the ground, door knocking, showing up for the people like in your immediate geographical circle. And so if you don't know your mission, you might end up doing the wrong things. So mission is critical first. Know what your goal is. And that can be a short-term goal, like what do you need to have in the next 30 days? It can also be more of a long-term goal. So that's first. The second is mindset. So mission is the first M. Mindset is the second M. Mindset is essentially going into everything that you're going to do when it comes to marketing with a mindset of experimentation. What if this works? If it doesn't work, I am not a failure. It's just that the marketing didn't reach the right people. And I think so often we take things personally. So it's like, we hear this all the time, but mindset is so important when it comes to this whole business entrepreneurial journey because we can self-sabotage in so many ways. I was even just talking with a client who they're like, I know I need to show up more and post on LinkedIn and have more of a founder-led presence and personal brand, but I am so scared of judgment. And she was just flat out about saying that. And I'm like, thank you for admitting that. And she was like, I need to change my mindset around this. Like, I know I have something worthy to share. I know this will help me to reach my impact-driven goals. But the mindset was like, everyone's going to judge me. Everyone's going to judge me. I don't want to experiment with this because what if I fail? And so you can see how that would really hold someone back from implementing any marketing strategy. So that's the second M, is to work on your mindset. And there are people who are very qualified to do that. I am not necessarily the person, but I always like to bring it up because it is very valuable. And then, so once we have our mission, we have a strong mindset around the experimentation required to succeed. Then we think about our main ingredients. So kind of what I said at the beginning, most people jump right into main ingredients. They're like, do I need to have whatever, a website and fancy branding? And it's like, maybe. What's the mission? What's the mindset? And now choose your main ingredients. So I usually map out my main ingredients in terms of like, if you need fast cash and you want to build a true community, start with some of these things. If you're trying to build more visibility and eyeballs, do some of these things. If you want to be found on the internet and start to appear for, random questions through ChatGPT, do some of these things. So there's kind of like a staged or tiered approach to what your main ingredients can be, but it can also just be, whatever feels good in terms of that joy bucket. So yeah, mission, mindset, main ingredients.
And in that order too.
In that order. It has to be in that order because I just don't think it's worthwhile to invest time or energy or money into marketing if you have no idea what you're trying to accomplish. Or you're not clear on like what that little success measurement metric should be. And so, yeah, it has to be in that order. Otherwise, you can feel very scatterbrain marketing.
One thing leads to another.
It does, exactly. This all connects.
Yeah. And I find like the mindset piece is probably the most underrated thing. Like for people starting a business, they just think, oh, I'm going to go start this business. But it's actually such a huge personal growth and development undertaking that I think a lot of people don't even know when they first start. So definitely agree on that being an important piece as well.
Yeah, I think there's like a popular quote that says like running a business is just like a personal development journey undercover or something like that. And it truly is. It's like, if you want to stay stagnant and not learn and not grow and not stretch yourself, do not become a business owner. Because, yeah, I just feel like choosing this path, it like stretches me in so many ways and it forces me to get better every day and not coast for too long.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Something that I always admire you for is your time management because you're a mom, you have hobbies like mountain biking and paddleboarding and staying physically active that are really high priority for you. You also host a top 1.5% podcast. You're a consultant. You instructed at Toronto Metropolitan University, like the list goes on. How do you juggle all of these things?
It's a big question, yes. Okay, this is like my obsession, and I'm always learning about time management and how we construct time in our heads and why some people can do a lot in 24 hours and other people, don't get what they want done. And I haven't necessarily like immediately cracked any codes, but I'll share a few just like lessons and learnings that I've derived from being super obsessive about how I can maximize a day. So I guess first things first, it's like my perception of time was really skewed when my mom passed away because one day she was alive and she was living her life. She was golfing. She had her anniversary dinner with my dad. And the next day she was essentially dead. And I know that's like very just like abrupt, but it made me realize that like we are never guaranteed tomorrow. We can't change the past. And all we can do is like maximize the current moment that we have. And I just kind of like had this wake up call that like, if this moment is my last moment, do I want to not be maximizing it? And my answer in my head was immediately no. Like I love to make the most out of life. So I kind of went on this obsessive time journey. And I started to think like, why do I go to bed some nights and feel unaccomplished, but I go to bed other nights and I feel like I've really done a lot with my day? And a lot of it came down to like, well, did I do the things that I know make me the happiest? And the easiest thing that I started doing was just scheduling and looking at my calendar every day and going, okay, if I say that fitness is important to me, is it scheduled in? And then I took it further and I started color coding it so that I could look at my calendar and be like, okay, light blue always means my workout block. If I say that friend time is important to me with particular people, do I have reoccurring dates on the calendar with them? If I say that spending time with my 2-year-old is important to me, do we have activities planned so that we're not just in the house like bopping around? So I really started to take my calendar seriously and using Google Cal as like my way to wake up, look at the day, go, can I make this better? Do I want to take anything away? And actually give myself this snapshot of, are all of the things that are most meaningful to me today put in the calendar? So that would be kind of my step one approach. I think the next bit of that too is like really paying attention to what brings you joy and what detracts it. So there are some days where I show up to an event or I have a call and I have this gut feeling of like, shoot, this is not what I should be doing right now, or my heart's not in it anymore, or, I don't feel good among this environment or these people. And I think we all have this inner compass that's like trying to tell us like that's not a good spend of time. And if today's your last day, if that expression resonates with you, like, maybe you shouldn't have done that thing. So I think just starting to pay more attention to like, where are those gut feelings happening? And when you have the joy feeling, when you show up somewhere, like for example, I started doing Friday coffee dates with my friends here in town. And we bring our kids and we let them run around and we have coffee. And every Friday I'm like, I just love this so much. So I'm always the first one to text everyone on Thursday night. And I'm like, well, I already have it in my calendar. Nobody else does. But I've blueprinted it because I'm like, that's something that I'm going to do every Friday morning because I know it really like fuels me. And it's something that I want to prioritize even if nobody else wants to show up. So yeah, I think very simple things. And we could get a little more nitty gritty on that, but those two things are just so simple, I think. Pay attention to what your gut is telling you about how you're spending your time, and then start calendaring and just being more intentional about like, if something's important, write it down, use your agenda, use your Google Calendar. Otherwise, you could go through a whole day and be like, I didn't do anything. And that's fine for some people, but not if you're trying to maximize.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so underrated too, putting those kind of things on your calendar. And it makes me think of that visualization of having a jar and you have to put stones, big rocks, and sand in. So you're putting in those big rocks first, the ones that
Yes.
mean the most to you, and then adding everything else to your calendar, which I think is really impactful too.
That's such a good reminder because, yeah, I think if someone doesn't know their big rocks, that's step one, right? Because you have to know, what are you trying to get out of this week or this year or this day, to build around that. For me right now, it is like very much exercise and sleep. And I build a lot of my day around those, which is kind of embarrassing, but I'm like, okay, well, I want to go to bed at 8:30 at night or at least wind down at that time. So how do I build the day around that to not be out late? And exercise, it's like sometimes I have to get creative because my little guy is with me. So I'm like, how do I still get a workout in, include him, but have it calendared so that a week doesn't pass by and I'm like blaming, oh, I didn't have time because I was with Freddie. It's like, no, I have so much time and he can enjoy a workout too.
And
Yeah.
is it because you know that by prioritizing those things, it enables you to show up even better in other ways?
Yeah, that's such a good point because, yeah, the reason why I choose those two things is because when I sit down to work, I really want to have a clear head and a focused approach to work. And I'm sure we can all relate to that moment where you just kind of like roll out of bed, go to your laptop, and you're just like lingering in your work for 8 hours. And it doesn't really feel very focused. So I find that when you kind of like have these rocks, as you call them, to build your day around, things that really bring you joy and light you up and make you a better person, and when you kind of use those rocks to think about like, so when I'm at the gym or when I'm like winding down or waking up, I'm always like, what is important for today? And I can kind of mentally run through my workload and think and do a little bit of jotting down. And usually it's during my workout that I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I have to, activate this idea. And my main project today is the SEO strategy because I'm like really firing with that. And then I'll sit down and I can work with like focus and efficiency. So yeah, that's why I build around those two rocks because I know that my brain doesn't work properly or as quickly. And I want to be efficient with my work, not, drag things out. So I think that's like such a topic I'm interested in too, is like, how do we do intensely focused work so that we're not working longer than we need to.
Yeah. It definitely takes practice too, I think.
Yes. Oh, it is. It takes so much practice and knowing what your priorities are and what to focus on. And then, like, all these little stimulation cues of like I put on like theta wave music or binaural beats. I'll take like certain mushroom supplements, like natural mushrooms.
Yeah.
I will like make sure I have a cozy hot drink and snacks beside me so that I'm not dreaming about going to the fridge and grabbing a cookie. So it's like all these little things. And then if you can get into flow state, you can just like bang out your work and then move back to your life.
Shifting gears a little bit, you and I have had a lot of conversations around AI, and I'd love to know, what are your predictions right now? I know it changes every day, but what are your predictions right now on how it will impact marketing in 2026?
Yeah, we're seeing this happen like every day. I'm kind of awakened to the fact that our AI, so whether you're using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, can do a lot of the marketing content output, and it can help us to like accelerate the process of planning an event or writing our email funnels. However, there is definitely an energy behind an AI derived marketing plan and a lack of true accountability and humanization that I'm seeing. And so I guess one of my predictions to answer your question is that it's going to be so important to bring the soul back into marketing. And I always think back to my experiences working at Vega, where we basically would set up a tent at the end of a race finish line, and everyone who passed us by, we would say, "Hey, have you tried Vega before?" And they would walk towards us and we would hand them a sample and we'd say, "Yeah, congratulations. How did your race go?" And we made them feel something around our brand. And that to me was like the gold standard of marketing, where you intercept someone who doesn't know about your company or your brand. You bring them one step closer, give them a little sample or a trial. You get to know them better, right? Asking them about their goals, what are your challenges? And then all of a sudden they're walking away with a $70 tub of protein. And it's like, that to me is true marketing. And I think when AI creates our content, when we have chatbots who are managing our DMs, when we're running automated webinars and trying to convert a sale, that can all work good at a certain point in your business, but we're really sensitive to it right now. And even I shared this in my email newsletter the other day. I landed on someone's landing page for a program they were selling. And as I was scrolling, I was like, I don't think this beautiful person, it was a woman, selling this course is a real person. And I got to the bottom of the landing page of this creator, I forget what it was called, the program. And I'm like, this program sounds really good. And I got to the bottom, and all of the hyperlinks at the very, very bottom of this landing page led back to this weird agency site. And I was like, oh, this is not a real person. They're using an AI generated human with pictures to sell this course. And she was pretty and she was dressed in a certain way. And I just had that gut feeling. I don't think this is a real person. And immediately that made me distrust the brand. And so that's just one example of how I think, yes, we can use AI and have it build out so much for us, but is the connection and the soul and the community there? Or is it falling flat? Because I think a lot of us are underwhelmed by the results of our AI-driven marketing plans. So I think, looking for ways, and you have to get creative with this, to bring human connection back to your marketing. That might be as simple as just sending more voice notes to your social media followers. It might be hosting more in-person meetups. I know you've done a spa day before, like things like that, where that person's real. You will refer them because you sat beside them and drank a coffee with them. And you just can't replace that. So yeah, I think that's something that we're all pondering right now, but it's looking for ways to radically humanize your marketing and just, I don't know, like lean back into what makes us all unique again, which is tone of voice and our quirkiness and those little things that are just built into our personality, but that we sometimes like turn off when we're using AI.
Mm-hmm. And I always find it interesting because people say it's the M dashes and it's the Oxford commas that, it's AI, but I don't think that's the case anymore because AI is literally trained to learn what we've put into it. So the more that people put into it, the more it learns, but then it's overusing those patterns. It's sounding like really generic. Yeah. And even if, like you said, with that landing page, like it breaks that trust a little bit when you're like, is this real? If you're not sure, then that trust is already diminished. And
Totally.
in this economy and in the world that we live in now, like trust is the number one thing in marketing, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought in that moment where I was on that landing page of that random creator girl, who I still don't know if she's real or not, but I thought if I had met this person at an event in person and shaken hands with them, I would be buying this course right now. But I'm not, because I cannot validate or trust that this person is real, legit, has done what they said they've done. And that's when I realized that like we're not necessarily eager to hire outside of our community anymore. And I think that's a common sentiment. It's like if I can hire you instead of a copywriter or a brand photographer or marketing strategist across the world, I'm going to hire you because I know you. I can go knock on your door right now and like have true conversations with you. So I think it's going to be the person who can build the most relationships that wins over the next year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also consider you to be an expert in getting found on ChatGPT. You make it seem like very approachable and not super overwhelming. So if somebody was just kind of learning about this, where would you recommend getting started?
Yeah, I would say first, I want to always share with people that it's not complicated. ChatGPT or any AI engine, just know that it can only pull what you've told the internet about you or what other people have said about you. So it's two pillars. What have you said about yourself? So what have you said on your website? Do you have a lot of pages on your site? Do you have a Google My Business page? Do you have Instagram? Do you have LinkedIn? Do you have Facebook? All of that is really good. And then the other side of that is have other people said things about you. So you're going to post this podcast and hopefully you'll tag me. That is you validating me, which helps my ChatGPT and AI visibility, that among many other things. So it's like if you even just Google yourself or ChatGPT yourself right now and say, what do you know about Kelsey Reidl Consulting? What is it pulling from? What are the sources? Are you happy with what it's sharing? And if the answer is no, or that you barely have any content on the internet, you need to start populating shit. So start a podcast, start a Substack, post on Instagram 3 times a week, get featured on other people's blogs. Like you have to give the internet more if you want to be discovered by any type of search engine. And I would say if you want to learn more, I have a free training on my website at kelseyreidl.com. So you can go download that. It's under the free resources tab. And yeah, just the easiest way to start learning is to use the tool yourself to find certain things. So maybe think of a business in town. Maybe you're thinking of the local coffee shop and say, hey, can you recommend a coffee shop in Cambridge, Ontario that roasts their own beans? Okay, so let's see what it pulls up. And if you know there's a coffee shop in Cambridge, Ontario that roasts their own beans that's not showing up, that is a huge problem. It means that coffee shop has not told the internet what they do. And people have not said, I bought beans at this shop in Cambridge. So then your starting point is just to like go revamp all your information and give more content because sometimes more is the answer, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said to go in and ask it about yourself.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. And I'll also make sure to add the link for your free webinar in the notes. So if you want to check that out, go in the notes and check it out. You also recently rebranded your podcast, the Rain or Shine podcast. And you did that after 8 years of having the Visionary podcast. So I'm just curious what that change, that rebrand felt like for you and how you shared the journey of that with your audience.
Yeah, so I started the Visionary Life podcast in 2018, And I was kind of building the whole brand around the word visionary. So visionary life seemed really suitable. And I had a good run with that for many, many years, over 350 episodes. And then I hit a wall and I was like, uh-oh, am I shutting this podcast down? Am I like in need of a break? I had never really taken a proper break, had been releasing episodes nonstop. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I was like, something's stale. And so instead of pushing through anymore, I did decide to like just, do some thinking around it. And I think it was honestly out on a walk one day in the rain. Oh, I know. Yeah. So it was early in the summer. It was like a rainy day. I was taking my dog out because, as you do with a dog, so I just like laced up my hiking boots. I put a rain jacket on. And I remember encountering this summer concert series that was at the pavilion near me. And there was one guy who was playing, he was like, I think he was from Mexico, and he was playing this beautiful Spanish music. And there was nobody at the concert. And normally these concert series bring out like, I would say hundreds of people. They happened every Tuesday at the pavilion. And I just remember being like, it's unfortunate that people don't have this rain or shine mentality, because this guy is literally like one of the most talented people I've ever heard. And like, why don't we show up for the concert, rain or shine? And I think it's because we're afraid of those rainy days, or, we take the weather and we decide to base our entire day around, well, it's raining, or circumstances aren't perfect, or my motivation's not there. And then we miss out on life. And so I just started like building out this concept in my head and thinking about some of the experiences that I've had in life that have been most meaningful and impactful to me. Another one of those was just thinking back to one of my best friends when I lived in Toronto. We would always run every Tuesday morning. And I always just remember that we never texted each other at like 6:45 a.m. being like, hey, we on for today? As many people do, because we just did it, rain or shine. It was like, doesn't matter. If it was ice, we would just shuffle our way through High Park. And I always just considered her like my rain or shine friend. It's like, I don't even need to see if she's coming. She's coming. And I really admired that about this particular friendship. And so, yeah, I really just started thinking about like, what does this motto mean, and how can it guide us all to live a more vibrant life, essentially, and not pretend that rainy days don't exist, but to instead realize that on a rainy day, seeds are planted, seeds are watered, and that's going to bring really good stuff down the line. So yeah, I kind of just had this nudge. Again, going back to that gut feeling of it's time to change it. I saw that you had worked with this incredible designer and Bandit Creative, and I was really inspired by her graphics, actually. So thank you for being a part of this journey. And when I saw you post about your collab with her, I was like, oh my gosh, like these graphics are just getting me inspired looking at them. So I just decided to hire her to do the rebrand, even though I wasn't sure. And I just kind of like kept building it out secretively, not knowing if I was actually going to roll it out. And yeah, I sat on it for a few months and I just thought, what is the worst that happens if I do this? And I remember listening to a podcast, hearing a quote that like, sometimes you have to say, what's the biggest thing I can do today that won't completely ruin my business if it fails in order to see growth? And so I asked myself that. I'm like, what's the biggest thing I can do today to change things, but to not ruin the business? And I was like, I'm going to rebrand the podcast. So yeah, it's, the content hasn't changed. There's really nothing different about it. But in order to re-energize myself as the creator and producer of it, I knew that I had to feel aligned with the name, the message, the values, the undertone of the conversations. So yeah, sometimes a simple shift like renaming can actually just kind of chart the next chapter of a podcast or any project, really.
I love that. I love that story. You talked a little bit about community and in-person being big for 2026, meeting people in person. You also co-host in-person events for female entrepreneurs. I'd love to know how you've seen the impact of that for yourself and also for those who have attended.
Yeah, so this was kind of a newer project as of the last, I'd say 2-ish years. And I know you were there at one of the inception events, so it's pretty cool that you've been there since the start. I've always been a huge fan of community and in-person events, but I think with COVID and just becoming busier in my consulting business, it was actually easy for me to just sit on my laptop all day. And that was awesome. Like, the business was growing and I had projects to work on. And my mentality for a couple of years was I don't have time to go to in-person events. And I certainly woke up one day and realized that, like, I want to be creating these. And I was lucky enough to meet a co-founder of the events, Emily. And she had a very similar vision and was ready to gather women. And she scoped out our first location and just said, let's just try it with 10 women. Don't charge them anything. And it was the exact nudge that I needed because I was like, yes, let's do it. Like, it was an immediate yes, even though we had no agenda, right? And I think that's the best way sometimes to start projects. So we hosted our first little event at this beautiful lakeside town in Ontario. And it was just getting 10 women together to chat and to share. And because those 10 spots were so easy to fill, we're like, okay, we'll have to do it again. Those 10 spots filled, and then, okay, we'll have to do it again, but this time we'll charge for it because we're going to provide lunch and a guest speaker and breath work. And I think it was the ease that we felt around it that was like, oh, this is A, needed, and B, so enjoyable for us. And I don't know that everyone loves to like be a party planner or a gatherer of people, but that's something that I just love doing. Like, if I could host dinner parties every night, I would. And that just feels so nourishing. So to have that arm of the business is definitely like filling a selfish void, but also the way that we see women show up to these events and then refer each other and then do Instagram collabs after and then host different events together and support each other. And it kind of goes back to like where the world is going, that if I don't know you in person or if I've never met you or if nobody's met you before, are you super relevant within your geographic community? And the answer might be no. So really the vision is to create those spaces where women can gather and learn and connect. But the whole thing is that it's not like bougie. You don't have to show up and like be dressed a certain way. We host these events in small towns. So we've intentionally chosen 2 small Ontario towns where parking's easy to find and the venues are beautiful and on the water, but super quaint. So we're trying to, keep a very grounded and just like down to earth feel, but still inspire women to think big and to pursue whatever dreams they have. Where often part of it is business growth. So we bring in great speakers and try to connect you with your missing link at that event.
Mm-hmm. And you and Emily, I think, both have such a great way of drawing in those people who fit in really well with those events. They blend really well together. Everybody's going in with the same mindset, like not like, oh, I have to get my next client. It's like going into it for the purpose of making those genuine connections.
Yeah, that's so important because I think there's a very big difference between a networking event where you're kind of like handing out business cards and an event where you're showing up and just kind of open to the magic, and that's what everybody else comes with as well. So yeah, it's just making sure that, that energy is maintained even as we grow.
I would love to close it out with some rapid fire questions if
Ooh,
you're
I
up
love
for
this.
that. So the first one, what is your favorite way to wind down after a long work day?
Oh, favorite way to wind down would be sitting in the hot tub with my husband, especially because it's winter as we're recording this. And we just we're not on our phones. We talk about the day. We do this thing called Rose and Thorn, which is just, obviously sharing your rose of the day and your thorn of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And it just like gives us a chance to reflect on the day after our son has gone to bed. I would say that's my favorite ritual way to wind down.
Mm-hmm. I love that. What is your go-to beverage? I think I know this one.
You know it, and it goes against the name of your podcast.
Yeah.
I almost said no to this podcast because I really don't like tea.
Just 'cause of the name.
But yeah, it is definitely coffee, double espresso. It's never tea, but I wish it was. So yeah, I'll need you to get me on the tea bandwagon soon.
Yeah, I'll have to change it to the unfiltered brew just for this.
Just for this episode, yeah.
What's one book that changed your business?
I would say the book is The Slight Edge, and it's just a book that talks about marginal improvements and doing little things each day to gain a slight edge over somebody who quits.
Mm-hmm. Love that. I'm going to add that to my list, I think. What's the best business advice that you've ever received?
Best business advice I've ever received. I mean, it's not like specific advice, but it's more of a mindset that I see in all of the successful mentors that I've had, which is play the long game. Like, don't expect quick fix, overnight results from anything. But when you extend that time horizon to, hey, if I do this for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, what could happen? You always end up, winning on the other side of the long game.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is your most effective productivity hack?
I would say most effective, besides sleep, because I think sleep is a productivity hack, I would say knowing what playlist gets you into flow state and putting it on and repeating it every day.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
Yeah. When I built my first online course, I listened to the Post Malone CD that had been released that year probably 800 times. I put it on repeat. And so I knew every beat of every song, but it got me into this crazy focused state because I just listened to it over and over and over.
Yeah. Was it the first one, the one with the red and black cover?
No, it
No.
was a yellow cover.
That one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I got to go back and listen to it because I'm sure it would bring back so many memories. I think I had to put the playlist aside after I built the course. I was
Yeah.
like, I can't listen to this anymore, but it really worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a dream project or collaboration that you're calling in for 2026?
Oh, well, I actually have a meeting today that is with a major bank, hoping that they will sponsor our events. So, a dream collaboration would be somebody seeing the vision and potentially wanting to partner to make our events bigger, better, and give us a little bit of a cash injection to do cool things for the attendees.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm wishing you all the best with that. And
Thank you.
thank you again so much for coming on today. I feel like it's been such a valuable conversation, and I can't wait to have people listen to it.
Well, it has been my pleasure. So thank you for featuring me in the first few episodes. And like I texted you yesterday, I'll be your biggest fan and cheerleader listening to every episode on my walks and my hikes. So I can't wait to see it all go live.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evie.
I want to take a quick moment just to thank you so much for joining me in this space and just to encourage you that if there was anything that kind of sparked something for you or that you felt like somebody that you know maybe needed to hear, please feel free to share the episode. And if you are excited to hear more, go ahead and subscribe and listen to more of the episodes. I'm so excited that you're here and I can't wait to continue this journey with you.